Hey guys, Paul from the Complete Personal Trainer podcast. So yesterday we had our quadcast where we talked about training strategies for the quadriceps. So how to get them bigger, how to get them stronger, and how to use them in athletic endeavors. And I got some messages from it, which is cool. People giving some really nice feedback, which is cool. So today I wanted to do a butt cast, a glute cast. Because the glutes are a very popular muscle group at the moment. Each muscle group goes in vogue over time, like hamstrings are the way to fix everything, glutes are, core is, etc. When in reality, all muscles are as equally important as the other. The only one being more important would probably be the diaphragm, because if you don't have it, you die. So that being said, let's go into the glutes and how to train the butt properly. So the thing with glutes, we'll start with hypertrophy, because hypertrophy and performance in the glutes are actually quite similar, quite correlative. There's a lot of data showing there that hypertrophy of the glute will allow for greater performance and greater output. So if we're going to look at hypertrophy in the glute, we've got to look at two different things. We need to look at training it in the lengthened position, and we need to look at training it in the shortened position. Mid-range of the glute, it's not really that effective, so we don't really need to worry about that. So with glute work, the best way to train the lengthened position of it is to go into a moment of hip flexion. So a really good exercise that trains full moment hip flexion is the high bar barbell back squat. Leg press is another one with the feet higher on the platform and legs a little bit wider. Basically, what you want to do is modify a lot of quad exercises to target the glutes as well, because we know from EMG studies and also other data that back squats train the quads, the glutes, and the adductors. So if we change our mechanics and we can shift the emphasis to the glutes, we can do a much better job there. In terms of training the shortened position, the hip thrust and the glute bridge are really good exercises to do that. But the thing that we need to keep in mind, that with the glute bridge and the hip thrust in particular, is that the range of motion only needs to be quite short. So a lot of people are doing hip thrust where they're kind of like going all the way down like this and coming back up, but really the effective angle should only be a very, very small amount of movement. So if we do the glute thrust and we keep the tension on the top position in the top of the range in the shortened position, we're going to get a lot better outcomes in terms of hypertrophy from that. We're going to get high buildup in metabolites. We're going to get not too much muscle damage, because in the shortened position, the fibers don't really work that well. And I'd really like to thank Kasim Hansen, I think that's how you pronounce it, of N1 Education for really bringing that to light. He's been really big in disproving certain exercises and bringing like a really good biomechanical approach to the glutes. So things that won't work and things that we need to be aware of with the glutes is that sensation is not equated with tension. So what I mean by that is, just because you feel your glutes working in some weird way during an exercise doesn't mean it's actually productive from a hypertrophy or strength standpoint. So a lot of the booty band exercises, a lot of frog pumps, etc., they have a high degree of sensation but not a high degree of stimulation. So doing that, it's not really an effective way to do anything for the glutes. It'll give you a pump and all that kind of stuff, but a pump, again, isn't really that correlated with muscle growth unless there's adequate mechanical tension to go alongside that as well. So that's something that we definitely need to consider. The other thing with the glutes that we need to look at is fiber type and orientation. So the glutes are kind of like a triplanar muscle. The fibers, imagine this is the hip, I'm holding a butt now, they roll down like that, and they have action in the frontal and the transverse plane. So when working the glutes, adding in the locomotive type exercise, such as walking lunge, might be a really fantastic idea to help load up that muscle group as well. And what it will also do is train that muscle group in the frontal plane, and then it's going to start to target things like the glute medius and the glute minimus. Lateral step-ups and other step-up variations, and other fantastic exercises to train the glutes as well. Now, in terms of rep ranges for the glutes, it's a similar type of thing, that 5 to 30 repetition range within 4 reps shy of failure to get a high degree of relative intensity in each rep is going to be universal across the board. What you want to do is match your rep range to the exercise. So if you're doing an exercise like a barbell hip thrust and you're doing it in a shortened position, you're not going through a huge range of motion, you might want to actually put the reps up. This is an exercise I see a lot of people loading up with a ton of weight, an absolute ton of weight, and doing like 3 reps as if a 3-rep hip thrust is going to actually do anything for anyone. It's not really an ideal way of going about things. So with that, put the reps up higher, around the 8+ mark, 8-15, because you'll probably start to get pain in your hips, anything more than that. It will also allow you to keep the weight lower and get a little bit more stimulus. For leg presses and stuff like that, you're going to look at the higher rep ranges and the walking lunges. It's probably better in most cases to actually drop the weight somewhat and do more reps there. In terms of specialized training techniques for the glutes, into like supersets, drop sets, all that kind of stuff, they don't really respond that well to that. They're quite a big muscle. They're more of a fast twitch type muscle. Like for example, they don't really activate too much when we walk, but they kick into gear when we run. So we need to make sure that we're doing a little bit on the lower rep range for most glute exercises for that, and that doing some of these techniques like metabolite training for glutes is really, really hard to do. You can't do occlusion training because you can't cut it off, you can't tie it off, and the next thing that you want to do is now we can move glutes into the performance realm once you've got hypertrophy. So we're going to use a phasic approach to the glutes. It's really useful to do like hypertrophy phase, like 3 phases in a row, and then a strength phase, because what will happen with the glutes when we're training performance is that when we build a big muscle and we increase the muscle's cross-sectional area, we increase the length of the myofibrils, and we increase fiber density and all that kind of stuff. What happens is the glutes are so heavily used in athletic activities already, such as running, jumping, change of direction drills. They're already going to become integrated into that, but training it in that fashion isn't the best way to build a bigger cross-sectional area. So we want to think that when we're training, how far off someone is. So I'm working with a sprinter at the moment who ran like a sub 11, like really, really quick, high at national level. We actually didn't do any heavy loaded glute work for him to integrate his glutes better into that. We actually build up the synergist around the glutes because they were the weak factor. So a lot of the time, it's not even the glutes. It has been a problem. It's the synergist will reduce force production, which will not allow you to have optimal athletic development, optimal, obviously, speed and vertical power in terms of jumping forward and projecting your body forward. For most general population clients, I think it's a good idea because the glutes, and particularly glute med, attach to the lateral side of the pelvis, and they're involved in fall prevention and keeping people upright and more accelerative motor drills, to always include a little bit of power, a little bit of frontal, and a little bit of transverse plane movement through the hips for these particular types of clientele, as the way they can improve longevity is really, really useful. So if you're a trainer now and you're working with populations over 40, and that's probably most of us, start integrating some basic frontal plane, transverse plane, and single leg drills into your exercise programs to make your glute work better. If you want some ideas of where to check this out, David Gray Rehab has some really, really cool stuff. Check him out on Instagram. Really cool stuff where he'll integrate the hamstrings, but he'll get the glutes working as well. And what he does, he doesn't give glutes like all the power in the world to solve world problems. He treats them just exactly how they should be, as a muscle group that's part of the system, not the overriding element of the entire system. So guys, that's the Glutecast basic summary. Skip your booty bands, skip your sensation drills, look for exercises where you can have a high degree of mechanical tension, you can get stronger at a higher rep range, match the rep range to the exercise, and then periodize your programs where you're doing a fair bit of hypertrophy work to then use that newfound muscle mass and take that cross-sectional area and be able to develop more power with it when you transition into power training. Stay tuned for tomorrow, guys, where I talk about another muscle group, who knows what.